Hello, and welcome to the project. In this project, the goal is to actually apply some of the things we've learned to some kind of real or at least realistic data and draw some conclusions that we will share with a professional audience. That's the basic idea. You've got three different options that I'll talk about in just a minute. You're not going to use all of the information that we covered in the course, just a little bit of it. The purpose is to have an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into some of the content that we covered fairly rapidly during the course of the semester. Each project is going to be submitted, you're going to submit drafts of parts of your project over the course of the next several weeks. So each week you should submit a draft of something called Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and then there'll be a final submission. What you'll be submitting in the final submission will include a spreadsheet with all of your data work. It will also include a written memo of some sort. There may be two spreadsheets in some projects that you might want to submit. The spreadsheet that you finally submit at the end in the final submission is 40% of the grade. The memo is another 40%, and then the mechanics of the writing are another 20%. So let's talk a little bit about what some of the options are. More detail, you will be able to find more details if you explore the actual projects themselves. So there's three options. One is a gaming option. So there's a new massive multiplayer online role-playing game called New World. We have the level data for New World from levels 1 through 60. In this project, you're going to use that data to try to create a model, an equation, that describes how many XP you need to reach the next level for each level. Then you're going to use that model to extend the level structure out to level 70 for a fictional patch that the game makers may want to issue. The second option is a nonprofit option. In the nonprofit project, you're going to create an annual budget for a homeless shelter where each month will be a separate budget. You're going to base the budget on something called bed nights. What a bed night is, basically one person staying at a homeless shelter for one night gives us a bed night. Right? And then we just add up however many people each night together to get bed nights. So you're going to look for patterns in bed night data, use that to project the number of bed nights for the coming year, and then use those number of bed nights to prepare the budget. The final option involves looking at a small business and examining the cost for a small business. So this will start by involving an interview, and you'll interview a small business manager or owner. I have got 3 people on tap who are willing to be interviewed by you, but you can also interview somebody you know or work for if you prefer that as well, if you do this project. So in the interview, I've got some questions that'll get you some data about the business, about their costs, and then you're going to use those data to figure out what your costs look like as a function of sales or expected sales. Those are the 3 options. By the way, the 3 small business options that you have, there's an adult entertainment store, a cannabis dispensary, and a music shop. So the options correspond to sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Anyhow, you only need to do one of these projects, one of the 3 options, and if you choose the small business, you're only going to do one interview for one business. Right? So you don't have to do everything, right? Just something. So what we have here is a grading rubric. So the grading rubric I mentioned, the total grade will be out of 100, the spreadsheet will be out of 40, the memo will be out of 40, and then the writing mechanics will be out of 20. Right? And so basically what you can look closer at this rubric as you choose, but for full credit on the spreadsheet, the mathematical work has to be correct, and the spreadsheet should be laid out in an organized manner that's readable for an appropriate audience member. For full credit on the memo, your recommendations and conclusions should follow logically from the mathematical work in the spreadsheet, and then you should include graphs and other appropriate representations for the audience. And finally, for the mechanics, The writing should follow an appropriate outline for your audience, and it should be clear and have very few typos. I mean, we're going to have a couple of typos, but we should root out as many as we possibly can before submitting. Then from there, you can see how, you can look at the rubric to see lower levels of lower point numbers for in each of those categories. So your score out of 100 will correspond to the following grades. You can take a closer look at that as you choose. And finally, a little bit about submissions. So the final project is due December 12th by midnight, and I really need it to be done by then because I have to submit grades. So for the final submission, you'll upload at least one spreadsheet. In some cases, if you choose, you may want to upload more than one, as well as some written memo or recommendation or something. And that should be, so you'll have at least two things you submit with the final submission. Prior to that, each week I ask you to submit some partial work, and the description of what you should submit for each is in the details for each project, which are available through our Canvas site. And each of them are going to be due the Sunday, a consecutive Sunday night starting November 21st. One thing to note is I will give you a score for those, but they won't count towards your grade. The purpose of submitting something ahead of these portions, these draft portions, is to keep you kind of on schedule and well paced, and for me to provide you some feedback ahead of time, so there won't be any surprises with your final submission. Consequently, the score is going to match the portion of the grading rubric that applies to what you're submitting. So parts 1 and 2 for all the projects involve some spreadsheet. So there'll be a score out of 40 using the spreadsheet rubric. Part 3 will be a draft of your memo, so I'll use the memo and mechanics part of the rubric. Anyhow, you're expected through the course of these 4 weeks to take my feedback and incorporate it, but don't limit yourself to my feedback. Review your work for other things as well, so that what you submit for your final submission is nice, polished, and something you can be proud of. It's been a great semester, and I've really enjoyed interacting with you electronically. Would love to see you. I would love to have seen you in person, but you're all over the country. So what a joy it is that we can work together from across the country. I look forward to seeing what you do in your final submissions. Thanks.